When the German Shepherd at the Riverside Animal Sanctuary finally went into labor, everyone held their breath. Weeks of care, treatment, and hope had led to this moment, but the joy didn't last long. Dr. Sarah Mitchell frowned as the first newborn emerged. These weren't puppies. Their size, strange fur, even the sounds they made, everything felt wrong. Silence filled the room as tears glistened in Luna's eyes. No one yet knew this night would change everything. It was a quiet evening at the shelter when an old pickup truck stopped at the gates. A pale, confused man jumped out of the cab and opened the back door. On a worn blanket lay a shepherd, dirty, thin, with eyes full of pain. "Found her by the highway," he whispered. "She's not moving. I think she's pregnant." Shelter Director Becca Torres reacted instantly. "Quick, get the stretcher. Call Dr. Mitchell." Staff carefully lifted the dog, and a quiet, almost human moan escaped her chest. In the room soaked with the smell of antiseptic, Dr. Mitchell leaned over her. "You're a brave girl," she whispered, placing her hand on the dog's head. The shepherd flinched but didn't pull away. The examination confirmed it. Labor would start any moment. "She's exhausted to the limit," the doctor murmured. "If she survives, it'll be a miracle." "Let's call her Luna," Becca said quietly, "because she miraculously made it to us." Night fell over the shelter. Other animals were already asleep, but in the corner of the medical room Luna lay with her paws tucked in, eyes open and alert. Her gaze was fixed on the door, as if she was waiting for someone. Becca checked on her every hour, but the shepherd wouldn't touch food or drink water. Dr. Mitchell frowned. "Does she sense something or someone?" She looked thoughtfully at the darkening corridor. Outside the windows, wind howled, and it seemed as if the night itself was whispering a warning. The night passed. A rare calm settled over the shelter after a stormy day. Only occasional rustles and the breathing of sleeping animals came from the pens. But near Luna's cage, dead silence. Becca approached closer and called softly, "Luna, sweetheart, how are you?" The shepherd didn't budge. She lay curled up in a ball, eyes open but her gaze wary, as if something invisible stood behind the door. When Becca reached for the bowl, the dog suddenly growled low, protecting an empty space beside her. "She's guarding air," whispered one of the volunteers, "like she has puppies there, but Luna hasn't given birth yet." Dr. Mitchell, watching the security camera footage, frowned. "Look, see how she stares at the hallway? Same spot every night." On the recording, the dog spent hours not taking her eyes off the dark doorway, as if waiting for someone only she could sense. But what no one could see was coming closer than they thought. The next morning, Luna began digging under her blanket, nervously shifting her paws. Her breathing became rapid. Her body trembled. Becca ran into the office. "Doctor, it's starting." Mitchell rushed to her. Outside, thunder roared. Wind drove rain against the glass. The shelter was lit only by dim lamps and flashes of lightning. Luna lay on her side, breathing heavily. "Hang in there, girl," the doctor whispered, stroking her. "Everything will be okay." The first one was born after almost an hour, a small bundle barely moving. But as soon as the doctor looked, her face changed. "This isn't a puppy," she said quietly. Becca froze. "What do you mean it's not a puppy?" The doctor carefully lifted the newborn. The fur was short, almost velvety, strangely dark. The body was heavy, disproportionate. She listened closely, breathing barely audible. Then came the second, then the third, and all looked the same, small, dark gray, with flat muzzles and strange paws. Lightning illuminated the room, and everyone involuntarily shuddered. Luna whimpered softly, licking her babies, pressing them to herself. Her eyes were wet, full of fear and love. "What is this, Mitchell?" Becca whispered. "I don't know," she replied, looking at the trembling creatures. "But this isn't just a deformity." She pressed the stethoscope to a tiny chest. The heart was beating slowly, too slowly. "Their blood is thick," The color is somehow metallic, she murmured. Luna growled when the doctor tried to move one of the babies aside. Easy, girl. We won't hurt them, Becca whispered, trying to calm her. The doctor thought for a moment. I saw something similar 10 years ago when I worked near a research center. They conducted experiments on animals' genetic modifications. She paused, looking at Luna. Maybe she's from there. Silence. Only rain drummed on the window. Becca looked at the shepherd. If this is true, her voice trembled, then these babies are the result of someone's experiments. One of the newborns suddenly moved and made a strange sound. Not a bark or squeak, but some kind of short vibrating tone. Everyone froze. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the walls with cold light. The doctor stood up. We shouldn't tell anyone until we know what this is. Becca nodded, clenching her hands. Luna lay down, pressing her children to her chest, as if understanding every word. But someone already knew, and they were coming. The next morning, a tense silence hung over the shelter. No barking, no usual noise, as if the whole house held its breath. None of the staff approached the room where Luna lay. Even the most experienced volunteers whispered in the hallways, casting anxious glances at the isolation box door. Mitchell hadn't slept all night. She sat at the table staring at the microscope and test tubes with blood samples from the newborns. The liquid shimmered with a strange metallic tint. When Becca entered, Mitchell looked up with reddened eyes. There are elements in their blood that shouldn't be there. No animal is capable of this. Becca sank into a chair. What are you saying? That they were created, she answered. Not born by nature. Becca went pale. You mean someone did this on purpose? Mitchell nodded. There's a program I once heard about. Project Genesis. Genetic experiments. They were creating hybrids, animals resistant to radiation and disease. It was all shut down 8 years ago. But maybe Luna is a survivor from those experiments. Becca covered her mouth with her hand. My God, she lived on the streets all this time. Seems so, Mitchell sighed heavily. And now she's given birth to offspring that inherited these changes. Meanwhile, in the isolation box, Luna lay alert. Her eyes followed every step of people behind the glass. The babies moved beside her, whimpering softly, strangely synchronized as if breathing in one rhythm. When the doctor tried to approach closer, the shepherd raised her head and growled quietly. Her fur stood on end, muscles tensed. Mitchell carefully lifted one newborn and suddenly noticed tiny traces of stitches on the neck. Almost invisible, symmetrical. Becca, look. These are surgical incisions. They were operated on before birth. The woman closed her eyes. Who could do such a thing? Mitchell froze, looking at the blood in the test tube. It shimmered like liquid silver. People, she answered, who decided they had the right to play with life. Luna whimpered softly, as if understanding their conversation. She carefully pushed the newborn toward herself, licking its muzzle. The doctor sighed. We have to protect them. But less than a day passed before rumors spread through the shelter. Someone claimed the newborns glowed in the dark. Others said they heard strange sounds, like electrical impulses. Fear grew with every minute. Doctor, Becca whispered, running into the office. People are scared. One of the volunteers is going to report to the authorities. No, Mitchell said sharply. If they find out, they'll come here and take them. She grabbed her head. We need to isolate Luna. No one should see them. By evening, the dog was moved to the far wing, where they once kept animals in quarantine. Cold, dim light, weak lamp glow. When the door closed behind her, Luna whimpered softly. There was something human in her gaze. Anxiety, but also determination. The doctor approached the glass and whispered, I'm sorry, girl. This is for your own safety. But that night she couldn't sleep. Something was bothering her. She went back down to the isolation block, quietly opening the door. The room was silent. The babies slept, curled up under the lamp. Luna raised her head. She didn't growl, just watched. The doctor turned on the desk lamp and examined one newborn. She felt something hard under the skin, carefully making an incision. She froze. Under the layer of tissue, a tiny metal disc glinted. "What is this?" she whispered. She took it with tweezers and held it up to the light. On the surface was engraved Project Genesis. Becca entered just at that moment. "Mitchell, my God." She nodded. "This is proof. She's part of the experiment." Luna howled quietly, as if recognizing the smell of metal. Her eyes darkened. Mitchell clenched her fists. "If these are military or private researchers, they won't leave them alone." She looked at Becca. "We have to be ready. This is just the beginning." And she was right, because the next morning, everything changed forever. The morning began with the call everyone feared. The phone at the shelter rang early when the sun was just touching the horizon. Becca sleepily picked up the receiver, expecting to hear someone's voice about a found cat or an adoption request. But the voice on the other end was cold and confident. "Is Dr. Mitchell there?" "This is Agent Keller, Department of Agricultural and Biotechnological Affairs. We received an anonymous report about an anomalous animal birth at your shelter. A team is already on the way." "Wait, who are you?" Becca began, but the line already buzzed with short beeps. She paled, dropped the phone, and ran to Mitchell's office. "They know," she shouted, bursting inside. "Someone reported us." The doctor looked up, and at that moment a low rumble of engines sounded outside the window. Black SUVs stopped in the parking lot, gleaming under the morning sun. People in dark uniforms with biosecurity unit patches began emerging. Panic rose in the shelter. Animals barked. Cats huddled in cages. "Becca," Mitchell said, grabbing documents. "We need to hide Luna immediately." But it was too late. The main door swung open, and a man with a cold, almost glass-like gaze entered. "Dr. Mitchell?" he asked. "We have a warrant to inspect the premises. We received a report about illegal biological specimens." "This is a shelter," Mitchell objected. "There are only rescued animals here." "We'll see," Keller replied, nodding to the agents. "Isolation section. Now." Mitchell and Becca exchanged a glance and rushed after them. But the agents were already heading for the door behind which Luna was. The shepherd sensed danger before anyone else. Her ears perked up, fur stood on end. When the lock clicked, she growled, covering the moving babies with her body. 3 men in protective suits entered. One of them raised a scanner. The device immediately beeped, emitting a high alarm sound. "Genetic trace confirmed. Class 3, the agent said. Keller frowned. "Doctor, explain." Mitchell stepped forward. "She was found on the road. We didn't know who she was. These babies." She fell silent, seeing the agent pull out a syringe with a tranquilizer. "No, don't touch her. She poses a threat," Keller said calmly. "Orders are to neutralize the subject." The shot sounded instantly. The dart whistled past. Luna darted aside, covering the puppies. One agent stumbled, knocking over a metal table. Instruments clattered to the floor with a ringing sound. Luna growled, not from anger, but from fear. Her eyes were full of terror and determination. "Stop," Becca shouted. "She's a mother protecting her children." But Keller was relentless. "Remove her." Everything happened quickly. Mitchell stepped forward, shielding Luna with her body. "I won't allow it. You're not destroying a threat. You're destroying life. Step aside, doctor." But at that moment, something changed. One of the babies made a sharp vibrating sound, as if the air itself trembled. Lamps flickered, devices beeped. Luna stood, pressing the babies against the wall. Her breathing quickened, muscles tensed. Keller stepped back. "What the hell?" Mitchell seized the second of confusion. She grabbed a carrier, opened the cage door. "Run, girl," she whispered. Luna, as if understanding, grabbed one baby by the scruff and rushed to the side exit. "Block the hallway," Keller shouted, but Becca, with trembling hands, pressed the emergency lever. Doors began closing with a rumble, giving Luna a chance. Seconds, just a few seconds. The shepherd slipped through the gap and disappeared into the rainy yard. "She's gone," one agent yelled. "Damn it!" Keller turned to Mitchell. "You don't understand what you've done. These animals aren't just dogs. They're government property. They're alive," the doctor replied firmly, "and you won't get them." Agents rushed outside. Rain poured down in sheets. People ran across the yard with flashlights and nets. But Luna had already cleared the fence, leaving behind only paw prints in the mud. Mitchell walked out after them, standing in the rain. "She won't give up," she whispered. "She'll save them." "Then we'll find her," Keller said behind her. His voice was cold but tense. "At any cost." Night swallowed the shelter, leaving behind noise, chaos, and the smell of wet earth. Somewhere in the distance beyond the trees, a shadow flickered, the silhouette of a shepherd running in the darkness, pressing to herself the life the world wanted to take away. Rain lashed the ground, turning everything around into a sticky sea of mud. Tree branches creaked, wind howled as if foretelling trouble. Somewhere in the distance, flashlight beams flickered. Agents combed the forest, but Luna didn't stop. Her breathing faltered, paws slipped on wet roots, but she carried the puppy, squeezing it carefully, as if knowing if she slowed down, it was all over. Behind her came shouts, "Check the western slope." She couldn't have gone far. Luna turned toward where a stream gurgled between the trees. Cold water hid her tracks, and she knew this was the only chance. Under the roots of an old oak, among wet leaves, she found shelter. She carefully placed the baby on dry moss and lay beside it, covering it with her body. Her eyes gleamed in the darkness, tired but alive. On the other side of the forest, Mitchell and Becca ran, stumbling, soaked to the bone. "We have to find her before they do," Becca shouted, grabbing the doctor's hand. "She'll go to water." Mitchell exhaled heavily. "It's instinct." They turned off the path, and after a few minutes they heard a faint sound, a plaintive squeak. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Becca nodded. They moved toward the sound and soon saw her under the oak roots. Luna lay, trembling, exhausted. The baby wasn't moving. "My God," Becca breathed. She was trying to save them all this time. The doctor knelt, pulling out a blanket. "Easy, girl. I'll help," she said, extending her hand. Luna raised her head. There was no fear in her eyes, only trust. She looked at the doctor, then at her baby, and slowly pushed the weakest one toward her. Mitchell felt a lump rise in her throat. "I understand," she whispered. "You want me to take him?" She carefully lifted the puppy, wrapped it in cloth. Becca was crying. "She trusts us." Somewhere behind them a branch snapped. Agents were approaching. Time was running out. "Mitchell, they're coming." The doctor stood, holding the baby to her chest. She looked at Luna. "You have to run," she said quietly. "For the sake of the others." Luna froze for a second, as if understanding every word, then stood, trembling, and disappeared into the fog, dissolving among the trees. When the agents burst into the clearing, they found only Mitchell and Becca. "Where is she?" Keller shouted. Mitchell looked him straight in the eyes. "She didn't survive," she said evenly. Keller frowned, not noticing how the doctor pressed the bundle under her jacket tighter to her chest. Weeks passed. The noise, alarm, fear, everything subsided. The agents were gone. Reports closed, the story forgotten. Officially, the dog didn't survive the storm. Unofficially, she simply disappeared. Dr. Mitchell often stood at the edge of the forest, looking at the green shadows between the trees. Beside her, Becca silently held a cup of hot tea. "Do you think she's alive?" she asked quietly. "She survived the lab, fire and us," Mitchell answered with a tired smile. "She's stronger than all of us combined." At the shelter, life gradually returned to normal. New animals, new families, new hopes. But deep in the storage room, behind a stack of old folders, lay a small box. Inside was a metal chip with the inscription Project Genesis and an unsigned letter, "Tell the world she wasn't a monster." Mitchell kept this letter on her desk. Sometimes in the evenings she opened the window and listened to the wind. And one day she heard it, that same deep, confident bark, carrying from afar, not frightening but alive, warm. She went outside, looked up at the stars, and smiled. Somewhere out there in freedom, Luna was raising her babies, hiding them from human eyes. She was no longer an experiment subject. She was a mother who chose life